How's it going, everybody? Session here. Welcome to Final Fantasy XIV. I'm just going to showcase a little bit of what my controller hotbar looks like for the warrior. Now, thankfully enough, with warrior, this out of the four tanks was the tank that had the least number of changes, and I even had some more wiggle room for being able to place abilities down. There were some movement placements for some abilities, but it wasn't anywhere near as complicated as like Dark Knight. And it didn't require me to kind of reconfigure myself as a warrior at all. So it was really easy to just kind of keep everything the same, but just move something around like once or twice. So I think this tank is the only tank where I essentially have the AoE combo in two different spots, but they're not like in a spot that makes a lot of sense, I would say. I don't know, because the thing about warrior is that like I have my AoEs, down here with Upheaval and Infuriate, but I have it up here also with Orogeny and Decimate. Now, before, I think was it Shadowbringers? I think it was like pre-Shadowbringers. I used to have like this whole upper section where my face buttons are with Decimate, Tempest, and Overpower and Orogeny. Like those were different buttons. I think they were just like mitigation tools that were up there. I never really figured out a really easy place to put those buttons, since I always had them down here also. Like originally my AoEs were down here, but we didn't have Mithril Tempest until Shadowbringers, right? Pretty sure, because I know that I had Decimate down here, and before Primal Rend I had Upheaval like this. So this is pretty much what the old hotbar like essentially looked like. Which, if you kind of look at it, it kind of sort of looks a little similar to how Dark Knight set up, because Blood Spillers what Felcleave is, Decimate's where Quietus is now, and of course like Storm's Eye is my buff. So that's and then that's kind of where Edge of Shadow also is. So, but I had Storm's Eye there first before Edge of Shadow. I used to have Edge of Shadow where Inner Release is now, but since Inner Release has always been there, even during the time of when I first played Warrior like a century ago, and I had Berserk there, and it upgraded to Inner Release. That Inner Release button has never moved since like a Realm Reborn, like, which is nuts. And I didn't really have a lot of other button placements outside of that though. Like I know that we had Mercy Stroke back in the day. There was also like Butcher's Block. So. And I think it's called not Maim. It's oh man, it's that other ability that it did like blunt resistance or something like that. I don't remember, but beforehand, I think I used to have like a 1-2-3 combo here where it normally is, but then I had the other variation of it where it fell through the Onslaught War basically. So obviously with those changes that came into place, we had to change a lot of things around. And for me, it was really difficult to figure out a placement for Upheaval with Endwalker, because Primal Rend came out and I understood that that was like its own move in some way, shape, and form, which I really enjoyed. But then Orogeny came out, and that was the AoE version of Upheaval, which wasn't necessarily difficult to differentiate the two, but finding a placement for it was weirdly tough. Because I think the biggest issue that I currently run into with Warrior is, again, like I have my AoE on a D-pad or directional button configuration on the first hotbar, but I have it on face buttons on the second hotbar. And I think the thing is that as a Warrior player, in the instances that I play as Warrior for certain raids or dungeons or whatever, like I don't really change anything around in terms of that. I don't know, like those button presses. So like for me, if I'm playing like a dungeon and I'm doing AoEs, then I like to come up here and I'll use like Overpower and Mithril Tempest pretty much, and then just spam that as much as I can and throw a Decimate in like once in a while. And then if I have to Infuriate here to do like the Inner Cyclone, then I'll do that too. And then if I need to use Bloodwetting, then that's perfect, right? And along with like Shake and Rampart and Vengeance. So I just had everything AoE-esque up here, which was perfect. The problem though is that I didn't really know where to put the Path in the Eye, because like Storm's Path is my general like 1-2-3 combo, which I always enjoyed, but then Storm's Eye, it reminded me a lot of like how Goring Blade and Royal Authority was with Paladin on the pre-work, but because I couldn't find anywhere to put Storm's Eye, I just kept it there pretty much. And I think that like these 4 buttons have also been in the same place as well for the longest time. Because I remember Stormboat days had 2 tank stances, which is crazy. Defiance was up here, and then Deliverance was on where Mytho Tempest was, which if you know that movie, then you know you remember those times as well. But you know, since they only brought it down to 1 tank stance, it was pretty easy to just kind of put everything as it is. And again, like up here, all this is the same, right? Which I've always enjoyed being able to do that. And same thing with these moves as well. The only real weird difference with the mitigation tools, at least up here, is that of course, like, you know, Shake, Rampart, and Vengeance are fine, but Bloodwetting and Nascent Flash are the same thing. But I have Nascent Flash on here for, like, I don't even know what reason. In my mind, it would make sense to put Dark Mind or Nascent Flash in the same spot, but also because with Gunbreaker, I have Corundum there, I should do it something like this. And I don't know why I don't. But it's also fine that I have it that way, because literally it if I use my AoEs during a dungeon, I can just activate Bloodwetting here, and then all of a sudden, right, it's just really easy to keep on doing stuff and then not have to worry about pressing anything outside of my normal AoEs and mitigations. So that's why I think I've always just kept Bloodwetting up there, and even with Raw Intuition as well, like same rules apply. But you know, because I have to activate the attack power buff combo out of using Storm's Eye, that's the reason why I pretty much always kept Inner Release here, because of Felcleave also. It just made a lot of sense to be able to do that. So I never really saw a reason to ever change the hotbar on the bottom left, like, at all, because whenever we got introduced to, even like with Inner Beast and Felcleave as a whole, like, I don't want to overload, but Butcher's Block is an old like mitigation or enmity ability that you used to use to maintain enmity, and I had it where Felcleave was, and Felcleave is where Primal Rend was, but then you know we got rid of that, right? So now Felcleave, Primal, and Onslaught are just in a similar place as they are with every other tank that I have. So you know, because Plunge, Intervene, and Rough Divide are all in the same spot with Onslaught, it just makes sense to put that there. Lightning Shot, you know, Unmend, and Tomahawk are in the same spot, so that was a no-brainer, right? So the only real 2 abilities I had to think about was Primal Rend and Felcleave. And thankfully, because I started putting 60-second abilities on this spot on its own, it was really easy to put Primal Rend there and kind of have it work. And thankfully, it was really easy to put it in the same spots as like where my Dark Knight stuff was, but of course the difference is that Inner Release hasn't moved, and it's, you know, that's technically where Delirium is, but I wasn't going to switch that around and make them feel like too similar by placement, because, and I think the reason why too is because on Gunbreaker and Paladin, Fight or Flight and No Mercy are here with Inner Release, so like for those 2 buttons to just sit there in the same spot just makes sense. And same thing with how old Edge of Shadow was, because I used to have any attack or ability or cooldown or whatever that tanks had that increased the attack power or activated like the burst window for the tank was on this button. So that's why Edge, No Mercy, Fight or Flight, and Inner Release essentially were here during Shadowbringer days, and then of course they changed because of Endwalker. But even then though, like, I still maintain some sense of comfort with button placement for Warrior. And here's the truth: Warrior is very, very flexible in terms of everything that it does, which is what makes the class so great. So I don't really have to follow like a strict, rigid window of rotation and opener and all that kind of stuff. I just have to make sure that I have certain parameters checked off before I go into anger mode, right? Which is cool. So obviously, I'm not a warrior main by any means, but and I'm still also trying to learn the class myself. But in my mind, it was like, oh, as long as I have my meter high and then I don't overcap my beast gauge, right? Then as long as I activate, 2 inner chaos and like a primal and like 3 to 4 Felcleaves, like I think I'll be good. And that has been kind of like the TLDR of how I used to think about playing warrior, and also fitting everything in between as well. The onslaughts, the upheaval, and all that fun stuff too in between. So yeah, I think all in all, it was really easy for me to, like I said, I didn't touch this class at all with Endwalker. The only thing that I did was move Primal around here, and genuinely, like that's it. The only real thing that was weird was Orogeny, because I didn't know where to put it until I realized that it was just AoE upheaval. Like, that made sense to me once I realized that. Then I was like, oh, so then what I'll do is I'll just put my AoEs up here like I do with Dark Knight, and then I'll make Orogeny the same thing as it is with like Flood of Shadow, right? And that was it. But then, because I've always had the combo down here as well, I didn't know what to put in these two spots. So I just was like, I'll just leave the AoEs here. And that's truly what it boiled down to at the end of the day. So I don't really have any idea what to put. Like, if I did have to make the AoEs only go in one location, you know, I don't really know which spot I would want over the other. I'm pretty sure I would pick the top as my AoE, so it'd be similar to Dark Knight. But then I don't know what I can use in these two spots, so I just decided to not touch it. Truly. So hopefully, with some time, when we get level 100, I don't know what they'll change. In my mind, I'd like to think that they're going to upgrade ffxiv again. I don't know why, but I feel it in my bones. I feel like they're going to do that. It'd also be cool to see them upgrade Upheaval, kind of like how they did with Expiation for Paladin with Spirit Within. I'd like to see them upgrade Upheaval. I don't know what they have to do though, but I don't know. I'd be curious to see. And if they add another GCD to fit under in a release, or as like a continuation for some part of the combo, that would be cool to see. But I don't really know what they would possibly change. Like I said, I don't really see them needing to change much for Warrior. Like, they can honestly keep Warrior as it is because of its flexibility and because it just is able to have so much. It has so much in its kit that it's kind of hard to see it, honestly, because I feel like you don't really have a lot of buttons, but you do, truly, you know. Like, Thrill and Equilibrium are great, you know. Blood and Vengeance is great as well. And I don't know, I feel like whenever I play Warrior, there's certain cooldowns that I don't use that I totally should use, but because I'm so focused on just doing damage half the time as a tank, I don't realize how often I can actually press those buttons. Like, I know that they're all like 60 seconds. Except for probably 90, but yeah. But either way though, I don't know. I feel like I have to just... The truth is, I should just play Warrior more often, since with this tier, I've been so focused on playing with Gunbreaker and Paladin with the rework, just because they got a rework. Like, I don't see them needing to change anything at all about Warrior. So if they do add anything, I'd be so curious. The only possible thing, like I said, I can think of is they add an upgraded version of ffxiv, or they just have Primal Rend 2. You know, that'd be kind of cool. So, but yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'm not picky. Warrior's fun as it is. It's been fun since, you know, since Heaven's Ward. I've been playing it a little bit. You know, I haven't mained the class for an expansion, but I've been playing it a lot during, like, on and off other classes. So, like, if I'm playing a tank, I throw Warrior in the mix just to kind of mess around with it and have fun with it. Because, again, the class is a lot of fun. So I like to see kind of what happens with Warrior. But again, hopefully this example, Hotbar, kind of lets you have that sense of flexibility with your button presses. Because again, you get your combo on the same spot as always for every tank, right? The 150 combo is there. Infuriate is in a spot that just allows you to activate on will when you want to activate, again, like that Inner Chaos or anything of that nature. So I feel like I like to be able to do that, just because if I'm in the middle of doing anything, I can just kind of tap it, and then just I have time to activate the Inner Chaos, which is cool. And if you do have a similar hotbar to how it functions with the Dark Knight, then because Inner Release is in a similar spot as like Delirium, truly you can put it like this and have it feel just like Dark Knight with Delirium. That'd be great. Since ffxiv is here, and since Inner Release also always activates Primal, you do spend a good amount of time on this side of the hotbar every time you activate Inner Release. So, like I said, hopefully that adds a little bit of ease into being able to set your hotbar up for Warrior. And again, I mean, because Warrior is so flexible, I feel like people can put anything anywhere and it just works for Warrior. I think this is a tank that has like the most flexibility in not only in terms of rotation and like attack function and mitigation, but even just with the hotbar in general as well. So I don't know. Like I said, I'd be very curious to see what have people come up with in terms of the warrior. So hopefully this helps. Let me know if you have any questions, and have a good day.